Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland, everybody. Welcome back to New Vegas, where today we're going to be taking a look at some explosives. So this time we're going to be taking a look at the frags. So the frag grenade, the unique frag grenade, and the frag mines. I was debating on putting like the demolition charge in here, but I figure I'll save that for a different video and just do it with like some more combined weapons that are somewhat similar to it, since it does kind of use the same model as a frag mine. But I figured it was different enough that I wouldn't include it here. Anyway, let's talk about the different frags that you can get in this. These are probably going to be one of the more common explosives that you can find. A lot of characters tend to use these. You can find them all throughout the Wasteland. You can find them basically at every level. We'll start out with the frag grenades and then we'll move on from there. The frag grenades require 25 explosives and 2 strength to wield effectively, so very low. If you're running an explosives build, or not even really running an explosives build, but just kind of a general purpose build, you're probably going to be able to use these pretty effectively. They do 1 damage on direct impact and then 125 damage from the explosion. This does 82 damage per second. Explosives with damage per second is weird. We've talked about that in all the explosive weapon builds, where sometimes they'll do extra damage because you can hit multiple enemies, and you can of course stack these on top of one another, but you do have to be careful about that because if you throw one and one explodes, it might bounce back and blow up on you, which is not good. This one has a big old 0 for crit damage. Most explosives don't do crits. This has 1 times crit chance. Doesn't matter if you can't hit crits. This one only costs 24 action points, which is fairly low. It's basically the same as all the other thrown explosive weapons, but this one isn't that bad. VATs and explosives can be a little bit awkward to use. Thrown weapons are generally the better of the 2 types of explosive weapons, I guess, besides shooting them. But thrown weapons in VATs are better than placed explosives. Placed explosives in VATs are just very awkward and you're likely going to blow yourself up. Thrown explosives, you can still blow yourself up, but it's less likely to happen. These ones only weigh half a weight, so same as most of the thrown explosives. And all around, the frag grenades can be a pretty solid choice for most explosive builds, or even builds that just want to cripple limbs too, because you can always carry a couple frag grenades on you. Let's also talk about the frag mines while we're here. I'm going to save the unique ones until later though. The frag mines also require 25 explosives and 1 strength to wield. These ones deal 1 damage on direct hit and then 100 explosive damage, although if you direct hit something, it's probably going to blow up on you too, unless you're chucking it off of a hill or something on top of an enemy, in which case then you might be okay, but you do have to be kind of careful with these, and just all explosives in general. These ones do 51 damage per second. They have a big old 0 for the crit chance, a 1 times crit modifier, which doesn't matter. These cost 35 action points. Again, they're a placed explosive. You don't really want to be using these in VATs because you're probably going to blow yourself up with them if you're able to use them in VATs. Just toss them on the ground and lure enemies towards you. That's going to be the best way to use them. And these ones also weigh half a weight. For the general pros of both the frag mines and the frag grenades, these ones do high damage, which is fantastic. They also have a very high chance of crippling limbs, especially legs. These can be really useful against all types of enemies, so long as they do have to run across them, because if the enemy's legs are crippled, you can probably outwalk them, which does really help when you're switching to another weapon. They are also pretty common. That's great. You can find frag mines just laying around on the ground if you want to disarm them. Merchants tend to sell a couple of them. Frag grenades are kind of the same. It's not hard to find boxes worth of frag grenades just laying around. I think that frag grenades are a little bit more common than frag mines, but neither one is super difficult to get. And these are probably going to be your go-to like thrown explosives for an explosive build. At least once you get past like the early game where you're not using dynamite anymore, or maybe to where you need to make like the tin grenades, which are also okay. But these ones I would say are a bit better. The general cons of these weapons though, basically everything that comes with explosives is going to be the general con of this. They can weigh a decent amount because you might need to carry around a lot of these, although that might not be an issue if you have pack rat, because that'll reduce the weight. Self-damage is always an issue, and crippling your own limbs is always an issue with explosives. You just have to be careful with these. And again, VATs can potentially backfire on you if you are using them, and they do have limited range. So you do have to actually chuck frag grenades, meaning that there is a overall limit that you can't just keep lobbing these like you could rifle grenades. You do have to throw them, and that does make you a little bit vulnerable, especially when you're trying to chuck them up high and you might not know where they land, or might not be paying attention to how many you chuck out and they might blow back to you, which can always be an issue. For a rating for both the frag mines and the frag grenades, I feel like high B tier is perfectly fair for them. They're both really good. They're both going to be common explosives that you can use in an explosive build or outside of an explosive build. Setting up mines beforehand always helps with just about any sort of build. That way you can lure enemies towards you. And if they get blown up or knocked down or whatever, it's going to be really easy to shoot them or to beat them to death with a melee weapon, assuming you're going with that type of mixed build. And frag grenades can always be useful for just softening up enemies and crippling limbs too. Now let's talk about the unique version of the frag grenade, which you can only get with the Wild Wasteland trait, so you have to take this at the very start of the game. And these are the holy hand grenades. You get a total of 3 of these in the entire game. You can't get any more than that unless you spawn them in like I did in these clips back here, in which case they are super fun. This one requires 0 explosives to use, 2 strength to wield. I guess that's kind of normal. I like a lot of unique weapons that kind of get spawned in like this, usually don't require very much of explosives. These ones do 1 damage on direct impact and then 800 damage on explosion. These can go up much higher if you stack all the explosive perks on top of this. This does 522 damage per second, so it's extremely high. This one has a big old 0 for crit damage, but it doesn't really matter when you're doing that much damage. Hitting a crit doesn't really help you that much more. This has a 1x crit modifier, again doesn't matter. This only costs 24 action points to use in VATS. You may not want to be using this in VATS. This is basically you chucking out a mini nuke, and then you have to get to a safe distance, otherwise it will probably kill you. These ones also weigh half a weight, and again, there is only 3 of them in total, and you do need to have the trait Wild Wasteland to get this. In order to get this, you have to go down south to Searchlight, and there is a box in a basement that just has 3 of these sitting in it. You can pull these out, and there you go. Those are your 3 holy grenades. These do actually count as a holy weapon, so if you kill ghouls with them, they actually count towards an achievement. It's this and Maria that are the 2 holy weapons in the game. Maria is way easier to get, and it's always in the game, and it has a super common ammo and a super common weapon type, so that one would be what I would recommend to actually get that achievement. But the holy hand grenades are one of the coolest weapons in the entire game. They do so much damage. They can just obliterate an entire crowd of just about anything. There's not a whole lot of enemies that can actually just tank through a holy grenade, let alone if you were to chuck out all 3. I don't think anything in the game besides maybe the legendary bloatfly could survive that, and even then that's a big maybe. I haven't tested it, but these are extremely devastating. These ones, I guess for rating, I would put up into S tier because they are just the strongest thrown explosive in the game, but you do only get 3 of them, so keep that in mind. If you're actually going to go for it, then you might as well. It also gets you the alien blaster, but it does lock you out of getting the unique Gauss rifle, so pros and cons to that. You may not need the unique Gauss rifle. Regular Gauss rifles are really strong, and the holy hand grenades are really funny. Let's talk about some perks too that help out these weapons. So Wild Wasteland is going to be necessary. This isn't a perk, this is a trait, but if you don't have that, you can't get the holy hand grenades. Demo Expert helps out these a lot. Getting 20% more damage per rank is really awesome, up to 3 ranks, so you can get 60% more damage. Hit the deck is fantastic for any explosive build because it just makes it so you take less damage from explosives, and you're probably going to be blowing yourself up a decent amount with explosives. Splash damage can be useful, but can also be kind of a curse because it gives you a bigger explosion radius, which means, again, it's easier to hit enemies, but it's easier to hit you too. And then Heave Ho is also another really good one with these, since it makes so you can throw these further. That really helps, especially if you're going to be using the holy hand grenades. That way you can chuck them far enough away to where you don't have to keep running back, or to where you have to like sit on a hill and chuck them down the hill. That perk in particular is really useful for this. I don't think it affects frag mines. If it does, it doesn't matter because you just toss them out right in front of you. So maybe you toss them out a little bit further than you otherwise would, but it really doesn't matter for them. It mostly matters for the actual grenades. So would I recommend the frag grenades and the frag mines and the holy frag grenade? Yeah, I would. Frag grenades are pretty solid all the way around. Frag mines are pretty solid all the way around. And the holy hand grenades are extremely fun. Even if they're not very practical at all for most situations in the game, they are super fun. Tell me your thoughts down in the comments below on the frag grenades, frag mines, and the holy frag grenade. How do you guys enjoy them? And also tell me what other weapons you'd like to see covered in this series too. Thank you guys so very much. I will talk to you guys next time. And until then, stay cool and bye-bye everybody.